Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this evening's discussion of Wild America. Two great naturalists with eyes of discovery discover our see our continent anew. And we have here a tufted puffin, which is one of the birds that they were able to see on the Pacific coast. What a wonderful bird that is. So, welcome to our sixth season. We started in the pandemic, and it was our attempt to stay connected. And so here we are 6 years later. Just last fall, we discussed Close to Home by Tor Hansen, and he assisted us in becoming better listeners and observers and paying attention. Coming up in April, we're going to discuss Return to Wild America, having read Wild America. And it's a wonderful book by Scott Weidensaul, where he recreated the Wild America trip 50 years after Roger Tory Peterson and James Fisher made their journey. So last year, 2025, was the 70th anniversary of Wild America. And it's such a milestone of this genre of travel books and about birds, like a big year squeezed into just 100 days. Now, I'd just like right away to get into chapter 14 before we start some discussing. And chapter 14, called Ivory-Bill Quest, is the title. And Roger and James talk about seeking for the ivory-billed woodpecker. And I'd like to show you a video. So I'm hoping this is going to work. Now, I had hoped that we could listen to it, and I'm unable to figure out how that you can hear the sound. So if you get a chance, go to eBird and listen to this. It's a toot. It is such a toot, and it's fun to hear. But let's look at a video here. So from chapter 14, I'd just like to read a little bit about their episode, Looking for the Ivory-billed Woodpecker. They're in Florida, the northwest part in the swamps. And James writes, we reached the last known ivory-bill's roost hole just when the bird or birds, if any, could have been expected to come out and call. The birds cry loudly and frequently as they forage. This tooting call is unmistakable. If the roost hole had been in use, we would undoubtedly have heard the bird. No sound. The last Florida ivory-bill, perhaps the last in the world, had gone from its last known roosting place. It was an oval hole, about 4 to 5 inches, in a large cypress, about 40 feet up. It was nearly 2 years since anybody had seen this hole in use. We turned away and landed nearby in a primeval forest. Well, for them, it turned out to be a good herping day or snake day. They did find 3 snakes, but alas, they did not see the ivory-bill woodpecker. Roger Tory Peterson had seen one in 1941, so this is like 12 years earlier, at the Singer Tract in Louisiana, where this video was also filmed and the audio as well. If you get a chance to get into eBird and listen to it, it's really so much fun. I'm sorry it didn't work out to show it.
Hey, Drina, this is Michelle. Everyone, I just posted a link to the toot in the chat if you want to go and
Oh,
listen.
thanks a lot, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, for tonight, as our hello, I was hoping we might talk a little bit about our spark birds. If you have a bird that sparked your interest in birding and got you going. For Roger Tory Peterson, it was, as I understand from reading some things on their website, the Roger Tory Peterson Institute website, it was the northern flicker. So um, I'm going to call on somebody, and then that person can call on someone if that works out.
Yeah,
And
some people, sorry, Drina, I hate to jump in. This is
no,
Nancy, but some people are putting their answers in the chat and I can read those off. If you want to unmute and let people know who you are and tell them what your spark bird was. This is again the bird that got you birding and interested in birds.
yes, okay. And I'll just start and say my spark bird is, I think, the red-headed woodpecker. But I'm not exactly sure, but I love the red-headed woodpecker. Okay, how about Nancy?
Um, well, mine is kind of weird. When I was 5 or 6, I had my tonsils out, and my mom said, "Oh, can I get you a little present?" And I said, "Yes, I would like a parakeet." So that was my spark bird, a pet parakeet. I always liked birds, so but that was fun. His name was Perry. Isn't
Mm.
that
Oh,
clever?
I love that.
Marianne says the barred owl was her spark
Mm.
bird. Lily says the roseate spoonbill. Ooh, exotic.
Mm.
That's nice. Anyone else? Again, either drop it in the chat or unmute and just let us know what got you into birding or was exciting and just said, yeah.
Mine was the red-winged blackbird.
Oh, how
Mm.
fun.
Hmm.
Uh, ours was the chickadee. I was with my sister, who's a very definitely a birder, and one of them they were landing on us, chickadees
Oh,
at a park somewhere. I don't know where.
nice. Oh, how wonderful. Jess says the pileated woodpecker that came
Mm.
to her grandmother's suet feeder. Uh,
Mm.
Doug Doug Wetzel says the ivory-billed woodpecker. Did you see one, Doug? Ever? Leaf says the robin. Oh,
No, I
and
didn't, but I searched many areas down south for it, and
uh,
I started in 2003, right when that bird was rediscovered, supposedly.
okay. That would have been exciting. That video was really wonderful, and you can really tell how different it does look from the pileated woodpecker. So much more white on the wings. How fun. Anyone else?
Mine's similar to yours, Nancy. When I was a child, I helped my grandmother take care of her chickens. And I always had a fondness for the chickens. And then I had pet ducks and later on. So
Oh,
started early.
chickens. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think that's it, Drina. You can continue
Okay,
whenever.
okie doke. So after our introductions here, I have a few slides about the book, and then using a map like the one you see right now that'll be labeled, I thought that might be a way to cue people to the places within the book that they are particularly fond of, or places that you've been that you would like to talk about for your experience. And then I have a little bit of information about the Roger Tory Peterson 2025 Wild America series, and then also about the Institute. And then I can't wait to show you the 5-story mural of Roger Tory Peterson in Jamestown, New York. So here we have the various editions, and there were 6 printings of the book. It's no longer in print. And I had inquired about that at the Roger Tory Peterson Institute, if they would have a copy of it, and they do not, but they had tried to get it reprinted and they were unsuccessful. So this with the 2 egrets is the British edition, and the rest are American editions. There have a little bit of difference in the maps that they show. The map that I just showed you is in one of the later editions, and the earlier editions have a little bit more elaborate maps, especially on the inside cover, so it's bigger. The authors dedicated the book to this guy here, Guy Emerson, a businessman who timed his business trips for the best birding, a kind of a strategy. And he had a record in 1939 of 497 species. Now, this is north of the Mexican border. And that stood from 39 until 1952, when the count of 515 eclipsed his record. Now, that guy who made the new record was Bob Smart. Now, while planning their trip, Roger Tory Peterson suggested that they try to beat Guy's record. And even though, as Roger writes, James was disdainful of counting or tallying, as the British might say, he did become enthusiastic about counting birds. With each new species he saw in North America, he called out, "Tally ho!" Now, Peterson's very first field guide to the birds first came out in 1934, and the 2,000 books that were printed sold out in a week. The next 2,000 sold out too, and it was a hit. And it's likely that Guy Emerson was able to utilize Roger's book to help him in his travels. Now, if you're interested and you'd like a signed copy of his first book, go to eBay, and you can find it anywhere from signed editions from $2,000 to more than $10,000. So James is English. He was English. They first meet in 1950. Roger was an American naturalist, conservationist, citizen scientist, ornithologist, artist and illustrator, educator, and a very early environmentalist. And he was nominated twice for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, James Maxwell McConnell Fisher was a British author, editor, broadcaster, naturalist, and ornithologist, and he made over 1,000 radio and television broadcasts on natural history subjects. He was perhaps the David Attenborough of his time. These men met in 1950 during an ornithological conference in Sweden and on a field trip to a murre colony. And here we have a picture of a common murre, excuse me. Peterson was kind of anxious about their very first meeting because he was wanting James Fisher's publishing company to publish his newest book about birds of Europe. And Fisher was a nature editor. Peterson needn't have had to be anxious because Mr. Fisher wanted to print his book. For more significantly for us, these two men became very good friends and as well as colleagues, and took many, many, many trips together. They had a deep and lasting friendship, and yes, it survived 100 days of travel. I wanted to say just a little bit about the artwork because the more I went through the book, each of the drawings became more just beautiful to see. And this method is called ink and scratch board, and it's also known as scraper board or scratch art. and is a form of direct engraving in which the artist scratches off dark ink to reveal white or a colored layer beneath. The technique uses sharp knives and engraving tools onto the scratch board, which is usually cardboard covered in a thin layer of white clay coated with black India ink. Scratch board can yield highly detailed, precise, and evenly textured artwork. And there's more information. You can see videos of this kind of artwork on YouTube too. There's an international society also. Okay, well, here is our map that I thought we could use as a discussion launch. And I labeled this map with many of the places that they saw, but of course not all of them because they had so many stops. But basically you can see that they did the perimeter, more the perimeter and coastal areas. They flew from here up to Alaska. So this was chosen partially because you can see so much more on the coast. And James Fisher had never been to the United States before, and Roger wanted to show him as many birds as possible. And also, since Mr. Fisher was such an expert on seabirds, that they wanted to kind of maximize his knowledge. So I'm wondering if anybody would like to start with talking about perhaps a part of the book or a place, a location that you really enjoyed and like to share, or a place that you went and have had marvelous, not only birding, but natural history experiences. And we can go ahead and discuss this for a good while.
Yeah, so go ahead and either unmute or if you want to drop something in the chat, that's fine. That would be lovely. We'll wait a few minutes. Maybe somebody will have something. If maybe not everybody has read the book either. So
Right.
this can also give you an idea as to, oh gosh, what a great way that things are written. And oh, I want to visit the Pine Barrens or Yosemite or some of the other areas.
I've got one, if I may.
That would be
Okay.
lovely. Yes.
So I'm going to refer to chapter 11, where Roger and James are in, and bear with me the pronunciation, Lake Okeechobee, which is just north of the Everglades in Florida. And they were looking for, or that's titled Kites Over the Sawgrass, and they're looking for what they call the Everglades kite. And back in 2023, I went to a place called Harns March in Lee, Florida, with my family, and we were able to see what they now call the snail kite. So the snail kite was very, very interesting to see, a very beautiful bird. But even more impressive were the snails that they hunt. The snail was about the size of a racquetball. And I had never seen anything like that. So it was so cool to see. And I think we saw limpkins as well. So both the kite and the limpkins feeding on the large snails. So that was a really, really cool kind of large or actual real life correlation between what they saw and then what I saw.
Yeah. I remember from that chapter too, I think I remember this right, that the snail kites would actually like sit on the reeds. And I was like kind of surprised that the reeds would be able to hold their weight.
Yeah, I thought similarly. They defied physics and were just on top of the reeds.
In the chat, Doug mentions he has been to the Rio Grande Valley many times.
Oh, Doug, this is Michelle. I'm going to be going there in April for the first time. So yay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you will really enjoy it. There's a lot of world birding centers down there. I think 8 or 9 of them.
Nice. I'm going with a tour company, so we're gonna hit some of the um, I guess good locations down there. I've like I said, I've never been, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I always say the coldest time in the winter is the best time to go down there.
Oh,
But
okay.
spring is good too.
Yeah, it might be kind of warm. Hopefully, it's not in the triple digits in April.
Remember to
Um,
say tally ho with each new bird you get.
I will. So everyone will get really annoyed with me, I'm sure. I see that there's Corkscrew Swamp on the map there. Now, I didn't read the book, but I see Corkscrew Swamp, and I've been there to the Audubon Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary just this past March. And it is a wonderful location. They have, I think most of it is like up on a boardwalk as you're walking around and looking down into the swamp at all these birds. And I had my lifer, yellow-crowned, um, what's it called? Yellow-crowned something heron there.
Night heron.
Night heron. Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry. In case everyone missed it, I am sick, so my brain's a little foggy. But yeah, so that was a wonderful location. But my favorite bird in Florida by far is the reddish egret. Just a super fun bird to watch. They are not like most egrets and herons that just hunt very stealthily, stay very still, and then they move really slow. No, the reddish egret runs around, flicks its wings. It's very energetic, and its hunting strategy is to startle the fish in a movement so it can find them and get them. So a very fun bird to watch.
I
Have
believe Roger and his companion mentioned that in that particular chapter when they were in
Oh,
Corkscrew Swamp. Yeah,
great.
yeah. So, yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. I don't remember him saying it was fun, but it's definitely very different behavior from other
Oh,
egrets and herons.
well, I say fun.
That's fine. Yeah. Well, I'm going to add my 2 cents worth. I'm in chapter 20 called Islands in the Sky. There were just some interesting discussion between Roger and James. And when Roger Tory Peterson mentions the National Park Service, I'm reading this directly, the National Park Service administers about 21 million acres. James seemed astonished. But I pointed out that it was actually less than 3/4 of 1% of the land area of the country. Remember, this is 55. So I'm sure that the Park Service has grown. But for somebody from Europe, from England, that was a lot of land. That is a lot of land still. And then James mentions, I hope you Americans will always hold on to these primitive areas, said James thoughtfully. We would give our souls to have some of them on our side of the Atlantic. You cannot realize until you are as crowded as we are how important wilderness values are. And it just, the discussion between the two at that time, it just, it's so nice. So yes, cherish our parks and our metro parks, our national parks, forests, any of our land that we can preserve.
Mhm.
I'm off my soapbox now.
This is Marty Burrows. I was just going to say I haven't read the book either, but I noticed one place that's on the map is the Olympic Peninsula, and it makes me think back in the 70s. Don and I were camping there on the beach, and I was so excited about sunset. A bald eagle flew in off the ocean, and then was followed by another one. And I don't think I'd ever seen one before because back in those days there weren't that many in Ohio. And so it's wonderful to think now how we can go out and see all kinds of bald eagles along the lake, which we certainly couldn't back in the 70s.
Wonderful. And Lily writes that she was excited to read that they visited the Everglades and enjoyed reminiscing about my trip there, also in February 2020. And Marianne says the Brits still feel that way about our parks and our protected areas. That's very cool.
Oh, and I didn't mention, sorry, Lily, I'm actually going to the Rio Grande Valley with Lily this April.
Oh,
So,
wow, how fun.
yay.
Cool, cool.
I think that's probably it. So if we can continue on, Drina.
Okay. I have a couple places from the book that I'd like to share, and and then also I'd like to, in a little bit, come back then to the Grand Canyon, and if we could talk perhaps about the Grand Canyon. So one of the chapters I was entranced with was chapter 28, which is about Yosemite, and it's entitled Big Trees and the Big Ice. And it is a chapter that goes into the big ice being the glacial age that really carved out the valley and that area. Um, James Fisher writes, today we saw the most beautiful valley in all North America, perhaps in the world, and some of the world's highest waterfalls, the biggest monoliths, and the world's oldest living things all in one day. It was, to say the least, exhausting. And as they're coming into the park, they at the service area, they spot this white-headed woodpecker, and both James and Roger get their cameras out, and in like lickety split time, both of them had taken pictures. They were so, just so excited about the birding there. And you can see here on the screen then too, one of Roger's engravings, the scratch board. I'm going to try this again with going to another site. I hope it works. But I found this website about Yosemite Park, and they have cams there. And so you can see different waterfalls or different special areas of Yosemite. Now, fortunately, they're 3 hours behind us, so it's about 4:30 in the afternoon there, so it's still light. I'm glad it's so light so that we can see this. And although this is, a small screen, it just, to me, it just kind of shows somewhat of the bigness of Yosemite, which really got to James Fisher.
So this is live, Drina?
It's live. Yes,
Oh,
it's a live.
wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And waterfalls are always, kind of magical. Now in this scene too, we can see some different types of trees, and I appreciated how much they went into discussing different kinds of trees, especially in the Pacific Northwest. And I had expected more, the book would be more about birding, but it is so much about other things too, plants, natural history. There's anthropology with the Hopi Indians, and so much more. It's just such a comprehensive book. So I'll say goodbye to this waterfall right now and get back here. Another chapter that I was entranced with was Islands of the Seals. And I'm not sure why I was so enchanted with it. I know so little about seals, and I felt like this chapter just, I was almost right there with them, and they were explaining, and I could understand it. So here are some of the seals that they talk about, not just in this chapter, Islands of the Seals, um, but we have up in this corner, we have, they're calling it a bearded seal. It's also known as a harbor seal, and we've had these at our zoo. And they are earless. They do not have ears. They're in a group of seals that don't have ears. And then we have a sea lion, which maybe a lot of us are familiar with from seeing too at circuses. And there's kind of a lot of fun and noisy. Over here we have the northern fur seal, and that's what they spend most of the chapter talking about, really getting into the history and the behaviors of these seals. And then they also have a chance to observe a walrus, many walruses, excuse me, an island full of walruses that are on the island because there's no ice for them to be on. Now, this takes place in the Pribilof Islands that are part of Alaska and quite far off, I think 250 miles off from the Aleutian Islands. And both James and Roger, plus three other people who were with them, all naturalists, all very excited to be in Alaska, extremely excited. Like for James Fisher, this was his dream come true. He knew so much about the birds in the oceans and seas of Europe. And he's such an expert. But for them, it was like just wonderful to be there. And they were familiar with some historical information too about the islands that had been written and about Alaska when it had been, let's say, studied after it had been sold to the United States for what I think $7,200,000 from the Russians to the Americans. Thank you very much. And they were also then familiar with Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, which has a chapter on the white seal. So these five men have a wonderful conversation about the material that they have read and was their basic education for pursuing the seals. When they come to the islands on a plane in this chapter, they talk about seeing all these seals, and they estimate that they see over a million seals. So it was just so exciting. Okay, then we also learn, and here's a rookery of the seals, and I hope you can see like how many gazillion, and these are northern fur seals, how many there are here. They come to the islands for breeding, and they're there from April till I think August. And then they go back out, far out to the seas. So they were just astounded by the number of seals that they saw, especially on St. Paul Island. There were more seals there. Now, James was quite curious about commercial sealing, so he joined the workers who went out to harvest seal skins. And he describes all the steps that are taken to round up seals, and they're of a certain size and a certain age, males usually 3, 4, or 5 years old, and between 41 and 45, 4 to 5 feet long, I think, excuse me, I'm not sure. Well, they herd them into groups, and they force them, like herding them, to a beach, and they put them in groups of 20, and they systematically club them, make them unconscious, and you can see the type of bats that they used. They flip them over them so that the seals are on their back while they're unconscious, and they make an incision through the whole belly, and then they stab the heart, and that kills the seal. Then they have a method, they turn the seal over, and they have a method and some tools that allow them, after they've made some incisions, to pull the seal skin off, and it has the blubber on it also. So it was hard to hear about that, and they may do 65,000 of these a season. So I'm not sure how the seal skin business is these days, but that was back in 1955. Now they keep the skins on the beach for a while to let the whole body cool. Meanwhile, they take the rest of the carcass off to a plant, and from that, they process soap and chicken feed. And on one of the islands, they don't have a processing plant. So, unfortunately, in a way, all those animals are just left on the beach. And a lot of other birds find their food with them. So it was not easy to read all that, but so interesting. Okay, let me go back here. And then just about the Grand Canyon. I'm just wondering how many of you have been to the Grand Canyon, and if you can recall your feelings about it. And let me just, I think I'll just go to that chapter, chapter 23, to read about it, because James Fisher is truly kind of astounded with this. Okay. If somebody else would like to start, go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't have the page marked.
It should be page 257. That's the
Okay.
chapter 23.
I did find it. Okay, we're on page 258. And to set the story a little bit, James Fisher has just heard on the news the past couple days great, amazing news that has taken over really the guys' discussions. One is that Mount Everest had been climbed, and so there was so much excitement about that. And then also Queen Elizabeth had been her coronation was that weekend. So James is like filled with all this information and nostalgia for Britain, and they're leaving Arizona, the eastern part, and they're going to the Grand Canyon. And this was just kind of just wonderful, some humor here. But finally, Roger says, after they've been driving for a good while, and it's also very hot, Roger says, "Here we are." "Oh," I said, "interesting forest. Where are the sandwiches?" Roger suggested, "Let's wait a bit for the sandwiches." "Wasn't it marvelous about Everest?" I said. "What's this place?" "Navajo Point, or Desert View, it's usually called," said Roger. "It's just beyond that screen of pines. We have to go down here a few yards." I went down a few yards. The world ended. Began again 8 miles away. Between the ends of the world was a chasm. The chasm was awful. Awe. Time brings awe to the traveler less often, no doubt, as time goes on. For time gives him, too, the accumulated, stored, recorded experience of those who have been before him. With all of these, I had prepared myself: words, music, paintings, photographs, three-dimensional color movies even. Yet all of these were, at that first moment of shock, reduced to a whisper, whispering, "Yes, this is true. This is real. This is it. This is the greatest abyss on the face of the earth. This is the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River." The loud voice, I have never heard it louder, was overwhelming voice of awe. I had heard this voice before in many places, some unexpected, but never, never had my awful friend Awe stood so long at my elbow, so close as by the rim of the Grand Canyon. Never will it come so close again. It just, to me, was such a beautiful expression of awe. And my own experience of seeing the Grand Canyon was, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. I just, my brain couldn't absorb what it really was. Um, in a way, it looked like a picture. And then I still kind of feel that it just was so hard to comprehend it. Anybody else?
I see a couple of comments about, yeah, that moment of awe. A couple of folks mentioned that. I've never been to the Grand Canyon. I would like to go, but this chapter was almost poetic because
Mm-hmm.
it does talk about, again, the grandeur, and then it talks about the years and the eons and where the rock layers are, and I mean, and the shadows and the light. And I'm like, wow. I'm in awe just reading it.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really beautiful. Well
Mm-hmm.
done.
Well done.
I agree.
Both of them are excellent writers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marianne.
Um, when Tom and I went to the Grand Canyon, we got a helicopter ride over the Canyon, and when when the helicopter approaches the edge of it, they start playing this theme song from Odyssey 2001. Do 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 do. And you're flying over this great big canyon. It's just awestruck. What they say about being awesome, it was totally out of this world.
That's outstanding. My experience was a little bit different in Miami University's Outdoor Adventure Club. We did a spring break trip out to the Grand and ultimately to the Havasupai Nation within the Grand Canyon. We at first stopped at the South Rim, and there were a few of us who had never seen the Grand Canyon before, but it was a blizzard and you couldn't see about 2 feet
Mm.
of you. It was the snow that would stick to your eyelashes and your eyes.
Oh, oh.
So we were able to go into the canyon, have a great time with the Havasupai Nation, and then we were able to come back up and look at the South Rim, and it's just, I mean, the poetic justice within this book is well said because pictures don't do it justice. It's just absolutely outstanding.
Drina, did you say you were there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I was, and it was I couldn't believe it what I saw. It was just my brain didn't take it in. Um,
I know I would cry.
mm,
When I
mm-hmm,
saw the ocean for the first time, the vastness, I cried. When I
mm-hmm,
saw Denali up in Alaska, I cried. There's just places that
mm,
they're just in like awe. You're right.
mm-hmm. Well, speaking of crying, um, after what I just read, the next paragraph is, and this is kind of funny. Um, James is writing, and he says, Roger, who knows that I talk too much, says that I was silent for 10 minutes. So was he. The first thing I said was, I shan't want the big lens. I wish I had a wide angle, drying my eyes under cover of my handkerchief while pretending to dry my forehead. So just James was really taken with the Grand Canyon and the grandeur of it. Okay. Well, I wanted to share a little bit about this mural in Jamestown, New York. Um, it was dedicated last summer, and this is a five-story building. And there's Roger Tory Peterson with these birds. And the artist his name is Chuck Tingley, and he has done projects in Western New York. I'm hoping this will work to take you here. And let's see here. So it's an interactive website and they talk about each of the birds. So you can, it's kind of cool. And again, this is so beautiful. This website is done by the company called tanager.org, and it's my son's website company. So I'm very proud of what he has done with the Roger Tory Peterson Institute's website. Okay, and then this is a close-up of the painting. It's called Take Flight. And the artist writes, my vision is that the mural be a vibrant celebration for the Jamestown community and its visitors, honoring Roger Tory Peterson and bringing awareness to Roger Tory Peterson Institute vital mission, which is inspiring others to see, study, and protect the beauty of the natural world. Take Flight is a mural that celebrates the legacy of Roger Tory Peterson. Rising 5 stories tall, it depicts Roger as an artist, adventurer, and a visionary best known for his Peterson field guides to the birds. First published in 1934, it has sold upwards of 15 million copies worldwide and effectively sparked and still fuels the modern birding movement. And here's a picture of the Roger Tory Peterson Institute in Jamestown. Jamestown's also the home of Lucille Ball. So there's a museum for Lucille Ball there too. It's also Chautauqua's very nearby. I have included here a link, and this is to a series of a series of 4 book discussions that the Roger Tory Peterson Institute hosted last year. Jen Lodi Smith was the host for that. And so here's a link for Wild America in case you're interested. It was a wonderful discussion, and also because Ken Kaufman was there. He said he has read Wild America 100 times, the first time when he was 13 years old. Scott Weidensaw was there. Of course, he read it, and then he conducted his own Wild America 50 years later. It was a really good discussion. And Jen Lodi Smith has started what's called the Sparkbird Project. And she's looking at and inviting people to contribute to her study. She's a psychologist, and looking at how birding works within us and all the good things about it. So, anybody have anything else to say or to add, contribute, anything about your experiences with birding?
I'd just like to add, when this book is it's a very interesting read. It's so fun to go kind of chapter by chapter. For those who haven't read it, it is like a travelogue, but it's so intriguing how but mainly how Roger writes and then how James writes as well. But the kind of feeling that I got from this is that these are two like well-respected ornithologists, and you think they just know everything about everything, but talking about the awe of the Grand Canyon, they even have the awe for some of the birds that they see. And it's so humbling to see or to read about James Fisher being just awed at all the warbler species when he's going down to like Shenandoah in the height of migration. And it's just a really lovely read, and you can read each chapter as a different location, and you can pick it up and kind of put it down at your leisure. So I really highly recommend it if you can find it. It took me a while to get it on the secondary market because my library didn't have it, but it's worthwhile if you consider it.
Well, one thing I found out too, I bought it online, but I did find, if some of you are familiar with the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, it is on there. And let me just show you. Here is, I found it really just like last week, but it's free. So I would have been able to read the book online. And this is where I got some of the pictures that I took of the artwork going through the book. So, what a great resource because the book is out of print.
Well, I also think that this brings up something else too. If you are out with someone else or a bunch of someone's, whether it's birding or just taking a walk, you're discussing the things that you've seen. And I think a lot of us are like, oh wow, yes, I've seen a robin, a million times, but look at the way it's eating. Look at how pale that one is. Look at how bright one that one is.
Mhm.
It's that discussion among people who are enjoying being outdoors, being with each other, sharing information too. So that's what I got out of it a lot early on. Their little talks and discussions and what each of them is perceiving. So yeah, it's a nice thing.
Well said.
Yes. I have just a couple more slides that I could share. Here's Roger Tory Peterson with his wife, and he was the first scholar in residence at Fallingwater. They inaugurated a program, and he completed his book about Mexican birds there. And then here's the Audubon magazine, which has features his artwork on one of the covers. He had 42 covers that he created. He was the art director for the Audubon magazine for many years. And this issue is from 1942. And you can find this on the Audubon website, but it has a wonderful article by another naturalist, Edwin Way Teal, who writes about Roger Tory Peterson creating this actual picture. And they're photographs of how he actually put this cover together. So this is on the Audubon website. If you search for Roger Tory Peterson, you could find it. So that was wonderful to know how much Roger Tory Peterson was a part of the Audubon Society. And then I included this just because it's so, sad to hear about the ivory-billed woodpecker being extinct and then the imperial woodpecker. It hasn't been seen according to eBird since 1956. So that is very sad, but there are 9 others here in this genus of birds of this type of woodpecker. So they're in South America, some in Mexico, none north for us to see. And I'm just wondering if anybody has seen any of these. This is called the Camphophilus genus, which means caterpillar lover. If anybody has seen any of these in their travels, or maybe not, but it gave me some hope, like, oh. Well, anything else anybody would like to say?
This has been a fantastic program, Drina. I really appreciate it. Well done, and I certainly look forward to Scott Weidensall's view of what happens, 50 years later from
Yes.
this particular book. So Lily says, great pick. So
Mhm.
good job. Everybody seems to have a nice chapter that's their favorite.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Doug
Good.
says he likes the chapter on Sky Islands, yeah, in Southeast Arizona. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so yep. Something for everyone, I guess. All right, folks.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks very
you.
much.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Stay warm, stay well. It's a good time that you can stay in and read. How about that? So pick up Scott Weidensaul's book and get cracking on that one for what's the date on that one, Drina?
April 28th.
April 28th. There's still a little bit of time.
Yeah.
All right.
And it'll be spring then. Migration.
All right, folks. Thank you. Have a great evening. Appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.